Welcome to the Human Spectrum. Thanks for joining me today. I'm Dave Rodriguez, and interesting title today. Are we properly being represented? Are we sending our leaders that we vote into office to the Capitol, where they make big decisions and pass a lot of laws and bills? Um, are we actually being represented anymore? And if the answer is no, for how long and why? And my research as of late has shown that we're not being represented the way we should be. It doesn't matter if you're Democratic or Republican or conservative, independent. That has absolutely nothing to do with what I'm talking about. I'm going to be showing a few clips today. And before I do, I want to give a big shout out to the Sean Ryan Show on YouTube. Um, this young man, uh, and thank you for serving. We appreciate you serving our country. I want to thank him for his access to his raw video clips, and which allows me to get my point across and hopefully get you to understand where I'm coming from as far as uh, not only UAPs and disclosure, but representation. Um, are we being represented? And you might think otherwise on the back end of this, and I'll explain why. So first clips are going to be from Representative Tim Burchett. He's out of Tennessee. Uh, Staunch advocate for disclosure, and along with many others, Representative Luna and many others. But Tim Burchett, um, from what I've seen and researched, he's been really taking a big lead on this. So I admire him for that, and it takes a lot of courage, and that's truly representation. However, as you'll hear in these clips, admittedly so, are we properly being represented? You'll understand what I mean on the backside of this. So a few clips from Tim Burchett. I'm also going to add a couple more clips in um, with Dr. Stephen Greer. Some of you have heard of him. Some of you may have not heard of him. But for the past 30 years, he's been um, stating that he's devoted most of his life after being an ER doctor to giving us proper disclosure. Now, I don't know if you've seen the other two videos that I've posted, but I'm I'm a big advocate for secrecy when it comes to our security. Um, and some of you may agree with me, some of you may not. I believe that if they have something, they meaning our government or governments of the world, hopefully our allies, if they have certain things in their possession that will protect us from danger and keep our democracy strong, I believe in that. I believe in security, and I believe that secrecy um, is needed in some cases, but not in all cases. So if you see my other videos, you'll understand why. Uh, free energy, stuff like that. Um, there have been people that have invented this stuff before and during the time the government supposedly have found possible craft and reverse engineered certain parts of the craft where they've learned of uh, energy that you don't have to plug into a wall or need coal for or a nuclear power plant for. It's literally pulled right out of the our surroundings, immediate surroundings, right now where I sit, where you watching this on your couch or chair or on your phone. It's all around us, supposedly. So, and there have been many inventors that have found um, ways to make literally things as big as a cigarette box or a cell phone. And on one end of it, they'll have a 9-volt battery. And then on the other end, it's pushing out 250 watts of power or more, which is incredible. The problem with these people, or those people, in the past, in recent past, the last story I heard of was in the late 80s of a man that invented this little machine the size of a cigarette box that could power up his home. No need for wires, no need for electricity to come off the grid that's powered by coal or solar or any of those things. Or windmills that can, those solar windmills that can just rust eventually. But anyways, I have a few clips from the representative from Tennessee and a few clips from Dr. Stephen Greer that I picked out that I thought would be appropriate for what I'm going to bring about in the backside. So without further ado, let's get into those clips, and I'll explain on the backside um, why I think our representation is not the same as it once was. So without further ado, let's take a look at those clips.
He said, I worked on the bomb when I was there. He said, I worked on a fuse. And he said, oddly enough, my wife, she worked down the hall and she worked on a fuse mechanism. And he said, and we never knew what each of us did. Maybe less than a handful knew that it was for the atomic bomb. That's what compartmentalization is all about. Nowadays, everybody's got a dadgum cell phone. Everybody's going to do a book deal or something. It's not quite like that. So you have to, My theory on and premise on this is the people that knew, like 47, Roswell, the people that knew, they compartmentalized it. It's a different America then. Well, a lot of those people are dead. So there's a complete disconnect after it's been handed off to this department or this department, and now in some corporate vault somewhere that has a quasi-governmental relationship. And I know that's a long way to explain it. That's how they keep this stuff secret. I don't trust government. I've been in it my whole life, and I don't trust it. There's a group of folks that they're power hungry and they're evil, and they don't share yours and my values. And you can talk about the compartmentalization of this stuff and how do you keep something like that secret? Well, I live in Knoxville, Tennessee, and I back up to Oak Ridge National Laboratory. And there's 6,000 people that work at Oak Ridge that live in my district. But Oak Ridge is where they developed the atomic bomb. Well, one of them anyway. And I was knocking on this old guy's door as an old man. He's putting his flag out. And I was talking to him. I said, you a veteran? And he said, no. He was kind of a little embarrassed. He said, I worked at Oak Ridge during the war. And I said, really? And he said, yeah. And I hugged him. I said, listen, brother. I said, if it wasn't for you, I said, my dad was on Okinawa. They were getting ready to invade mainland Japan. Truman said there'd been 1 million casualties. I mean, the kids were sharpening sticks. It was going to be brutal. That island fighting, and you'd have backed them up into their own homeland. They had the suicide subs and the kamikazes, and they were loaded up. The other agencies, I think they're realizing, again, America believes, and the world frankly believes, we're not alone. I think they smell dollars. NASA is, they're always hungry for money. They're trying to get to Mars. They're trying to do all this other stuff. Since 1947 at least, our government's been lying to us. Now all of a sudden they want money to study the issue. How are we supposed to believe, y'all, that all of a sudden you want to study these things when you've told us they don't exist? They didn't really have a clear answer. Ezekiel, go back and read it. You'll think you're on acid or something. But if you read it, and realize too, it's the King James translation. So King James, he translated it from Aramaic, I believe. I think that's right. I'm sure somebody's going to correct me on that, but I'm not a biblical philosopher. I just read it. Yeah, it's in there, and it talks about a visitor coming down. It describes a craft. It describes the landing gear. I think it talks about them in some translations like hood feet. So you'd think, a traditional pad that comes out, like you've seen in the science fiction movies and stuff. I look at those stars in the sky, and those stars, the light left those stars, some of those stars, before the time of Christ. I mean, that is the vastness of God's great universe. And honestly, do you think we're the best that God can do?
Huge mistake in the relationship between humans and these other civilizations. and here I want to put a button on this. When we detonated the first atomic bomb and the subsequent ones, when those go off, everybody knows what an electromagnetic pulse is. What they don't know is that there's an attending so-called scalar or longitudinal wave that is faster than the speed of light that disrupts the fabric and communication and propulsion guidance systems of extraterrestrial vehicles. This is why they came in huge force in the 40s and 50s. And this is why every single atomic and nuclear weapon storage facility, processing plant, and base and ship has been surveilled by these ET vehicles, because when those things are used, it's like tearing the fabric of space-time. The secrecy surrounding UFOs is, and I'm quoting, a threat to the national security.
All right, so we heard from Tim Burchett and Dr. Greer, and I'm sure many of you have seen those interviews if you are subscribed to Sean Ryan. Once again, thank you, Sean Ryan from the Sean Ryan Show, for allowing us to use your raw videos and video clips for our show today. So much appreciated. So if you haven't seen Sean Ryan's show and podcast, and he's got a great website also. So check that out also. But go to his YouTube channel and you'll get all the information you need there. He's got some of the best interviews ever. Period. Thank you for your service, Sean. We appreciate it. All right, some key takeaways from Tim Burchett and Dr. Greer. First of all, I'm not going to use the word charlatans like some other people have done in the past. And some of you know who I'm talking about. I'm not going to call anybody charlatans. People need to make a living, number one. And that's just the fact of life. I'm not talking about YouTube. I'm talking about people got to make a living. And I want to believe in my heart of hearts that Dr. Greer really, I'm not sure if he left altogether, but really put off his ER career and spent nearly 31 years working on disclosure. If you haven't seen The Lost Century, I recommend going to see that. You can probably watch it free by now, but it's on every platform that you can find documentaries on. It's called The Lost Century. But key takeaways from Tim Burchett first. He did talk about, family members that served and, the Japanese and us fighting against the Japanese imperialists, the war. And he spoke about a lot of things on that part. And he spoke about our Pentagon and our Department of Justice being compartmentalized. And some of it's so compartmentalized that I believe the tax money can't reach them all the time. So how are you getting your money if you can't, you know what I mean? If they have crafts that use anti-gravity, for example, there's lots of things you can do, I'm sure, to earn more than enough than what the taxpayers give you. And I hope that's not the case, because that would be very, very sad. And if you guys aren't sure about what I mean when I say that, check out Sean Ryan's show with Mr. Herrera. And it's an excellent interview. He was a Marine that was stationed overseas after a devastating earthquake, tsunami, and he was with a group of Marines that were used to fighting, and this was their first non-combat mission. And they happened to walk upon a situation that changed their lives forever. So I encourage you to check that show out on the Sean Ryan Show, um, who I thank very much for letting us use um, your clips. So thank you, Sean. If you don't know who Sean Ryan is, he's a great interviewer, and he has some of the best people on there. And he's not afraid to sit down and talk with these people about and truth and understanding about stuff that we should know and most people don't know. So a lot of credit to you, Sean, and thank you again for letting me use your clips. I appreciate that. So takeaways from Tim Burchett is the issue with compartmentalization. Try saying that a few times. So that's been going on a long time. The question is, are we being represented properly? And what I mean by that is not to offend congresswomen and congressmen or senators, because we elect them and we send them to the Capitol. And when we send them to the Capitol, we send them there to do their job and represent us, the community that voted for them. And unfortunately, after watching some reputable podcasts, listening and watching some reputable podcasts, I've noticed that there seems to be on the technology side of work that Congress does and the Senate, they are limited in what they can do, although they have the clearance to look into these things, investigate. Sad how hard it was to get that hearing going with Grush, David Fravor, and the rest of them. And I noticed that they spoke about, and I think Tim Burchett was actually the one who spoke out the loudest about how hard it was just to get that public hearing. Obviously, we're not going to hear everything in that hearing. For that, they would need a SCIF, and if you don't know what a SCIF is, it's a secure place where they can go and talk, and no one else can eavesdrop. Everything stays private. Um, but I even question that now. So anyways, he talks about a lot of things that I'm interested in. So the question is, are we being represented by our leaders that we sent to represent us on the technology side, on the unknown, on UAPs? Do you think that they're able to successfully do their jobs on the technology side? Or do you think they're compromised? Or do you think it's a combination of both? Or none? There's lots of variables. I mean, it's not hard. I mean, we're talking about a government that has the power to, I mean, I'm not going to say any more than this, but I mean, are we really unaccessible? Every single person, us common folk, are we really that unaccessible? Think about that for a minute. Each and every one of you probably have a smartphone. At least 98% of you do, I would think. So, how much power do they have? I know there were a few senators and, I'm sorry, congressmen, including Luna and Matt Gaetz, that went to Florida to go and speak with some pilots about, uh, I'm not sure if it was an incident, but they went to speak to some pilots about UAP issues. And they weren't immediately let in. They actually had to make a phone call, I believe, back to Washington. And they're in Florida with clearance, and they're being stopped by, and you got to understand this though, they're being stopped by someone whose career is probably going to last longer than theirs if they're not reelected over and over again. You see, a congressman and a senators, they're only elected for so many years, and presidents every 4 years, 8 if they're lucky. So, keeping that in mind, you have people that take civil service tests and put in 25 to 35-year careers in the DOD, whatever branch. I don't care if it's the FBI, CIA, DIH, whatever, all of them. I look at it as CIA, and there's just a big wheel around it. It's all spokes, and it goes to another agency. I don't know how many, 17 or more, but there's a lot of them. And do you think our senators and our congressmen have the power to get all the information that most ufologists want? I'm not one of them, but do you think they have enough power to get the information that those people are looking for? You know, I mean, and we talked earlier about compromise. It's not hard for someone to be compromised because we're all human, even the people we elect into office. It's not hard to have a gotcha on somebody, if you know what I mean. A lot of people have their own secrets and problems and whatever. It could be anything from marital issues to drug use to we there's limitless reasons that someone can use something against you if you're getting too close to something they don't want you to get close to, and they kind of bring that up in a nice friendly conversation. I mean, these things happen all the time. Now, what about the other part? There's some that has nothing to do with compromise. I believe there's a handful on each, the Senate and Congress, that are in the know. And the ones that are not in the know are the ones that are the staunch, you know, fighters, like Tim Burchett, Representative Luna, Matt Gaetz. And we're talking Democrats and Republicans. Care less which party line you're on or who you know, what politics you have. Doesn't matter to me. What matters to me is what kind of power do our representatives that we elect to go to the Capitol on our behalf have to actually dig into the situation of unknown technologies and possible beings not of this world. I've heard and seen videos about DUMBs, deep underground bases, where they're actually working with these entities or beings. I don't know which one they are. I have no idea. If you do, let me know in the comments. So yeah, that's the question. Because if that's the case, we're not properly being representative or represented. It's not their fault. At least I'm talking about the ones that are not in those two handfuls I spoke of earlier. It's really not their fault. As a matter of fact, it's probably very frustrating. And you can see it on Tim Burchett when I see him speak on TV, or if I catch him on where a mainstream media guy or a woman approaches him and starts asking questions about his UAP disclosure fight. And you can see it that he's strong, but he's tired. This guy's really pushing hard, and I'm not just talking about him. There are other congressmen and women that are really working hard behind the scenes to get disclosure. Now, disclosure to me is kind of different because I don't believe we should disclose something that could hurt us. Security reasons, right? So I get that. So there it is. We talked about representation. That's the question. We know they do their everyday business and they do it well and to the best of their ability. Um, whether they're crossing party lines or not to get the job done. Unfortunately, I see it's just so divided, and makes me think, is that done on purpose so that we're not looking in the right direction? Because really, what's the purpose? Why would you want to divide a beautiful country with a great democracy? It's just doesn't make sense. It wouldn't behoove us to it doesn't make sense. But the point is, do you think, and let me know in the comments, do you think we're being represented properly when it comes to UAPs, the technology, possible evens, or non-human intelligence, as they say it? Um, Let me know. And one other thing before I go, um, I think we've been around for 36,000 years, maybe longer. That's something for you to check out on Forbidden Knowledge. I really check them out. This guy is good. He knows what he's talking about. And he's very knowledgeable, and you'll know what I'm talking about when you go and check him out. But the reason why I bring that up is because um, we've been around a long time. So you want to take the biblical route? We can do that. Absolutely. What is the common theme for time? 2,000 years ago? 2,300 years ago? All right, we can go with that. Let's go with the biblical timeline. Back then, they only had so much vocabulary. You know what I mean? Do you think that Paul was walking around and talking to people about this new technology he found out about? Absolutely not. Do you think he was talking about an aeroplane or an airbus like they used to call it back in the old days? Do you think they were talking about saucers like they were in the 30s? When they first started seeing saucers around the Northwest and in Italy, and I think one crashed in Italy. And then they called it UFO after that. Saucers. Unbelievable. What do you think? Anyways, point is, why is it, and I'm going to call it recently. When I say recent, I mean 70 to 75 years. Why just recently did we get all this technology? Out of all this time? If you don't think it's a good question, you should. You should really let it sink in. It'll make you think, and it'll twist your mind a little bit, but it'll make you think. If it doesn't, it should. Why, in the last 75 to 80 years, did technology just start booming? So I say, why just now? Is it a result the increase of UAP or UFO back then activity because of the nuke? Did it ripple through dimensions, space-time? Let me know. Let me know what you think in the description, or I'm sorry, the comments. It's interesting stuff. So that's why I encourage you to send me any videos, or at least a copy of your videos and images. Very easy. Just send it to one of the emails that I leave in the description. And finally, when I get those, I can go live and hopefully you can join me. And I got the software ready and we can analyze it together live. That would be great. So I hope you find it in your heart to grab those videos you've been keeping to yourself that you know that may have spotted something we can't explain, and send Dave a copy, and let's you and I pick it apart together, and one of our live shows. I won't go live until I get some, because it's really no point. But yeah, definitely send me whatever you have. Anything you may have experienced. Weird clouds, geoengineering, chemtrails. I want pictures of those. Especially the ones where you get the halos over the sun. Maybe some of them have those sun dogs on the side. Definitely send me one of those in, a couple of those, and I'll explain that to you. I have an easy explanation for that. If you haven't watched my other videos yet, you'll probably find the explanation there. But I encourage you to still send them to me, though. I guess that's about it. Videos of anything unidentified, there's plenty of room to send it in the email. Both emails, there's two of them. You got djcapone46@gmail.com. That's djcapone46@gmail.com. And then you have my business from my my artist music website. You can also use contact@audiosquadmusic.com. That's contact@audiosquadmusic.com. I'll leave those in the description so you can just click on them or copy and paste them and send me those nice videos and images of your saucers or weird lights in the sky that you can't quite figure out. So, and when I get them, we'll do a little live show and we'll analyze it and pick it apart together and see what we can find out. It'd be really cool. So I look forward to that. So send me what you can. And until then, take care of yourselves and thank you for watching. Have a good one.